from the body, which was why there was no amount of safe heavy metal exposure. It was a cumulative hazard. When many radionuclides were heavy metals themselves, radiation and heavy metal toxicity tended to go hand in hand. She had offered a potential cure for one of the faithful's blindness, as long as they didn't mind an experimental solution. When she explained that the new eyes would be powered by and infused by the holy Adam's glow, she had to stop the whole congregation from immediately gouging all their own eyes out just to get her replacements, too. Still, they found another whose eyes were damaged so completely in the past that they couldn't be repaired via stimpaks. Although the cybernetic eyes she installed in her two volunteers were radically different from the ones she was planning on using herself, the fundamentals were the same. Her patient's biggest problem was reconnecting an optical input to a long, mostly reorganized sensory cortex. It took them several days before their vision was beneficial at all, and while they were still not where Lily thought they should be, they were still making progress every day and seemed very enthusiastic about their holy vision. Since she couldn't reach the stage of mimicking a human eye yet, generally and hers especially, she decided to lean into the fact that they were cybernetic replacements. She was blatantly ripping off the aesthetics of a character from a light novel and anime she enjoyed from her past life in America. It was called So I'm a Spider. So what? She considered it very fitting. There was a character called Shirari, a seemingly human girl who had a special relationship with spiders, as Lily did. She had blood-red irises, with each eye featuring 4 smaller sub-eye pupils. That way, she had 8 eyes just like most spiders, right? That was genius. By coincidence, Lily had 4 optical sensors for each of her cybernetic eyes. 3 were normal visual sensors, while the last was optimized just to see infrared and UV light, as special polarizing filters blocked the entire visual light spectrum out. Lily hummed as she peered at the fully assembled cybernetic eye. It featured a bright red color iris, but instead of 1 larger black pupil, it featured 4 smaller ones arranged as if they were the vertices of a diamond or square. She thought that Shirari's 4 pupils were actually white-colored, as that was her theme, but the idea of reflecting light away from a camera's aperture was silly without amazing spider magic, so black they had to be. Wait a second, Lily thought to herself as one of her memories of that anime returned. Didn't Shirari also have the original human pupil too? For 5 pupils per eye? Lily sighed. That was impossible. There was no way she could fit 5 sensors in that eye. This would have to do. Plus, this way, she wasn't entirely ripping the character off. Lily considered asking the apprentice to assist her, but if you've helped your mistress peel the skin off her face one time, you've done it 1,000 times. And this time, she could use a wireless feed from cameras to perform the surgery on herself after she has already removed her eyes. Besides, it'd be more fun to surprise the apprentice with her new eyes. XXXXXX. Lily spent the hour and a half after her surgery both getting used to her new sense as well as poking the slightly inflamed, numb-feeling skin on her face, just like she scolded the apprentice for doing after the girl got her computer installed initially. She had to replace everything from the upper jaw upwards on the front quarter of her skull, but now there was both diamond and metal in between her ocular cavity and actual gray matter. She could also see so much better now, although she had been kind of surprised when testing the optical subprocessor in failover mode in that she became almost completely colorblind. She didn't know precisely why this occurred, and she had not had any complaints of such a symptom from her 2 test subjects. She suspected there was a slight bug or malfunction in her optical subprocessor's digital-to-analog converter. However, since that was only employed in the event of a main computer failure, she decided not to bother replacing it at this juncture. She was building and designing the subprocessor with what she hoped would be obsolete technology in the next few months. Anyway, she hoped in a few months after she got back from the VSS building that she could hit the Robco factory. It would be ideal if she got that Robco widget from Moira Brown, but honestly, she wasn't going to wait 2 years to hit that place if it turned out that Moira only got it recently before the Fallout 3 game and plot started. She was very hopeful she could find the production process for quantum processors there. The more she remembered about the quantum processors of her own world, the more she realized it would take a long time to achieve that technology. It would be nice if she could just skip the steps of reinvention of a whole type of computing and scavenge the process from Robco. Her 3 visual sensors per eye granted her a theoretical superhuman field of view of over 160 degrees. However, she discovered that when she attempted to go much farther than normal, she was getting headaches, so she stopped at 130 degrees for the moment. The human brain was incredibly adaptable, and she suspected that she could easily reach the 160-degree effective cap of her current set of eyes in a few weeks of building up to it. However, most biomorphs that had a very large field of view, or even 360-degree vision, had specially designed or naturally evolved visual cortexes that handled that task. That didn't mean she wouldn't work towards that direction, as there were tons of ways to accomplish it, from neuroplasticity treatments to the complete replacement of the primary visual cortex with a synthetic replacement. Some of the things she had learned from the FEV experiments with the Gary clones could also be an option after being clinically tested. While she definitely wasn't going to expose her brain to FEV, she discovered what she believed was the cause of the rapid brain development, which was triggered when the FEV caused cells to produce a special enzyme and protein combination. However, unfortunately, she didn't presently have a cell-free protein synthesis machine, so she didn't have any way to easily produce the identified proteins and enzymes, absent infecting neural tissue with FEV in vivo, but she thought they might be the actual biological trigger for the accelerated brain development and pathway creation. If so, it might be an option to carefully administer such proteins and enzymes in her occipital lobe and in small quantities to encourage new pathway development. That was definitely a long-term plan, and she wouldn't be the first or even the first dozens to try such a thing. She liked her brain too much. She fished out her compact from her bag and clicked it open to stare in the mirror. Then, fluttering her eyelashes testingly, she nodded. Her eyes didn't look human. They looked better. It was time to show the apprentice. XXXXXX. She found Alice in the cafeteria having breakfast. Wait, did that mean Lily worked through the night again? Oh well, she could get a quick 90-minute nap. The apprentice was sitting across from Gary, listening to him talk, and she could hear their conversation from across the room. It's not easy, let me tell you. You never know when the next one will go, and then bam, it's all over. Lily tilted her head to the side. Was he regaling her with his war stories? As a senior NCO in the Navy, she highly doubted he ever walked through landmines, so she was wondering what the hell he was talking about. She slowed down her steps to eavesdrop a little longer. I tell you, it's a tightrope walk of peril, living on the knife's edge between the fart-shart line. He continued. Wait, what? He finished, verily. The most satisfying farts are the least trustworthy. For some reason, this caused Alice to laugh uproariously. But Lily was just stunned. Wait, I slept with this man? Shaking her head a little bit, she finished walking up to the table they were seated at and sat down as well. Well, completely disgusting or not, Gary's opinion would be useful as well. Apprentice, Monsieur Kaminsky. How do you look? They spoke at the same time. What do you, Lily grinned. That was great. The apprentice was first to reply. Dr. St. Clair, why do you have demon red eyes? And are those 4 pupils? I thought you were trying to work towards more human-looking cybernetic eyes. That caused Lily to moo prettily. She didn't like admitting something was presently beyond her, especially in the field of synthetic cyberware. It's really hard getting past the uncanny valley. A lot of the small joints that a human would expect a real eye to do is a bit tough. You have no idea how much neural circuitry has evolved just to look at another human's eyes. That caused Alice to blink, and Gary to ask, interested, what do you mean? Lily hummed. G's room is about 20 meters in its longest dimension. If we stood on opposite ends, I would be able to detect a slight difference between you looking at my eyes and my breasts at 20 meters. Do you have any idea how little difference in angle of incidence that is? That caused Gary to grin. Are you suggesting the human race has evolved to detect when men sneak a peek at a lady's boobs? That caused Lily to snort and wave a hand. There's plenty of advantageous evolutionary reasons for G's adaptation. Eye movement is correlated with many social behaviors, including deception. Eye movement also precedes action, sometimes violent action, yes? And if you can identify what a predator is focused on, you can use your big human brain to outthink it. Then Lily coughed a bit. In any case, I decided to go the other way. Jura is evidence to suggest that jura are better reactions when it is obvious you are not failing to mimic an human feature. That caused the apprentice to hum thoughtfully and nod. You might be right. They were a little surprising but etched. Right as the girl had been speaking, Lily had made all of her 4 pupils in both eyes start looking in different directions just to mess with her. The apprentice almost fell out of her chair. "Dr. St. Clair, don't do that. That is creepy AF." There were those words again. Lily didn't think they meant what the girl thought they meant. Then Alice narrowed her eyes and asked, "Wait, Dr. St. Clair, did you include 4 pupils per eye just so that you would end up with 8 like a spider?" Hee. Lily offered but shook her head. "No, it was just a coincidence. I need 2 visual sensors for the increased peripheral and field of view advantages while preserving one for the focus, including zoom. The last one is a focus sensor that sees only infrared and some UV light. Well, they do sort of look cool." Alice began only to have Gary shake his head and pipe up. "No, they look scary as fuck, but that is cool, so maybe you're right." Lily nodded. She agreed with both sentiments. "Well, that was really all I wanted to show you too. I'm gonna go for a ride here in a bit. I've something I'd like to do today." That caused them both to perk up, and Alice asked, "Adventure?" Lily shook her head, yes and no. "I'm gonna test your truck, test something else confidential, and at the same time try to clear that 4th floor at the hospital we found." Apprentice, that caused the girl to frown and worry. "You said that was a death trap." Lily nodded. "That's why you're not going, either of you. But the thing I am testing should make it not dangerous for me." Alice sighed, but Gary shrugged and said to the younger girl, "You had me convinced not to go at death trap." XXXXXX. Lily did a thorough inspection of what used to be her truck. It had changed a lot, although it wasn't complete. For one, it featured 2 long tracks on either side instead of wheels. Also, the cab of the truck had been completely covered in armor plates, and even the windshield was removed and replaced with an armor plate, with not even a slit to see through. The rear compartment had not been finished, so from all respects, it appeared like a cross between a large pickup truck and a tank. The Gatling turret looked more military, with armored shields guarding everything but the spinning apertures of the weapon. Instead of the rear compartment, there was a temporary long truck bed attached, and the 6 patrons she was taking with her were standing on it. Before she hopped up and entered the cab from the rear, she got an alert that her security forces were dealing with a violent disturbance at the front of the hospital, so she turned and started jogging that way. Her attempts to find leaders to help run her incipient PMC had been an utter failure. Everyone interviewed was either a psycho, intended to betray her at the first opportunity, or not qualified. She had managed to find 2 squad leaders, though, and employed 2 10-man squads, which wasn't nearly enough even to defend the hospital. She preferred younger people for the average recruits, even if it meant they were not strictly speaking trained. At the moment, they were getting OJT, being supervised by more experienced mercenaries that she continued to contract. She got to the front of the hospital in time to see 4 ganger-looking men tussling with 2 of her recruits. She could see another 4 or 5 recruits running towards their comrades from the other direction. Before any of her half-trained warriors accidentally shot her with a taser, she immediately ordered the 2Ks that had jogged with her to stun the assailants, which they did with surprising accuracy. The 2 of her men immediately got the upper hand, kicked off the twitching assailants, and got back to their feet. One gave one of the twitching men a good kick in the side for good measure. She approved of that, but she would make sure their squad leader smoked them for allowing 4 men to get within hand-to-hand combat range of them. She had given each of them an air taser carbine. While she had ordered them to keep it on the non-lethal setting, unless they were about to die, they should have tossed these 4 instead of wrestling them. Her recruits' comrades showed up and held the 4 men, who were slowly stopping twitching and rising to their feet, at bay with their weapons. The leader of the group of 4 NRDWLs yelled, "You fucking bitch!" So Lily pulled her own air taser out and shot him right in the crotch area, causing him to squeal, clench up, and fall back on the ground twitching. Glancing at her 2 recruits, she told them in a firm command voice, "Report." Both of them braced to something like attention and glanced at each other. Then one said, Recruit Davidson and I were working the front, and these 4 FU individuals showed up, demanding we turn over one of the patients. I think it is some gang thing," he finished, and then quickly added, ma'am." Lily blinked. They occasionally had this happen. Gang members would come in injured, and then a rival gang would show up or wait off the premises to finish the job. The guy with, no doubt, sore balls stopped twitching and stood up again. She raised the air taser again, but he held his hands out. "Fucking fine. Guys, let's go." His 3 men started to turn around, and he looked at her, But I know you now, so you best hope we never meet again, because if we do, it will be the last time." Lily blinked. Did he just? She piped his speech through her expert system and asked for its opinion. An implicit threat of violence. The implication is that if he sees you again, it will be the last time due to the fact that you will be deceased and therefore unable to meet him in the future. 77%. Lily nodded. She thought so. See? She was getting better and better at understanding people socially, even without using her social assistant. She flipped the switch to the lethal setting and shot him in the back as he turned around to walk away with his 3 friends. This time he fell over but only twitched a couple of times before becoming silent. One of his friends freaked out. "What the fuck, man? We were leaving." "Firstly, I am not a man. Secondly, he threatened me," Lily said mildly, looking at the gang member like he was insane. "Those were just words, ma woman," he continued. Perplexed, she glanced around and asked, "Is he?" She searched for a word that was both classy and meant stupid as fuck. The recruit that hadn't spoken up earlier did so now. It was kind of a bluster thing, ma'am. He couldn't look bad in front of his boys. You know, this recruit, like more than half, didn't have the best childhood, but for one reason or another had not joined a gang just yet. Well, actually, she wasn't conceited enough to call what she was creating anything other than a gang, either. But at least he had joined her classy gang. In fact, she had the same opinion about governments in her past life. The only distinction between the government and the mafia was usually that the government got there first. A look of comprehension came over her face. Oh, he's talking about face. To be perfectly honest, she often had trouble understanding this concept despite growing up in Shanghai. She glanced at the man she shot on the ground. His heart had only been stopped for a minute at the most. It was still possible to resuscitate him. She hummed and then shook her head. No, she didn't want to. She glanced at the 3 of his friends and raised her pistol, which caused all of her men-at-arms to raise their weapons as well, pointing at the 3. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Chill, chill. It's not that big of a deal. I guess, the one that had been criticizing her said. His unfaithfulness to his friend just made her want to shoot him even more. Instead, she said, "If you say something to me as you bluster, I reserve the right to believe it. Leave. Do not return." They didn't need to be told twice and beat feet right out of there. She sighed, shook her head and holstered the air taser pistol. She spent a few minutes briefing the 2 Chuckleheads squad leader, who was already frowning and staring daggers at the 2, before informing them to dispose of the body, and they could split if he had anything of value. She then turned around and headed back to her truck, and hopped in the cab as her 2 K-Trons